Welcome to the Build Your Private Practice podcast, a space for Canadian therapists who want to support others, make an impact, and build a sustainable practice that works for them too. I'm your host, Liane Wood, a registered psychotherapist, group practice owner, and business mentor, and I'm here to help you build a private practice that allows you to keep doing the work you love without burning out. Because the people who need your help the most are counting on you, and you deserve a practice that supports you while you support them. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. I'm your host, Liane Wood, and I'm so glad you're here. I have to start with something that's been on my mind because this is a special year for us. Build Your Private Practice turns 10 this year. 10 years of helping Canadian therapists build practices that support their lives instead of draining them. And there's something about hitting a milestone like that, a decade, that makes you want to stop, look back, and take honest stock of where things are, which is exactly what today's episode is about, just on a slightly smaller scale. Because we are right at the halfway point of the year. And the middle of the year is a natural moment to pause and do a checkpoint on your practice. So here's what I want to walk you through today: a calm, grounded way to look at your first 6 months so you can head into the second half with clarity instead of a vague hope that it'll all work out. We tend to treat January as the big reflection point. New year, fresh start, big plans. And then July rolls around and most of us just keep going. But the middle of the year might actually be the more useful checkpoint, and here's why. In January, you're working with intentions, what you hope this year will be. In July, you're working with evidence. You have 6 months of real data about how this year is actually going. That's not a fantasy to plan around. It's information you can use. And there's a practical reason why the timing is good too. We talked in a recent episode about summer being a build season, the lighter caseload of the summer months giving you a little room to work on your practice instead of just in it. And a mid-year checkpoint fits perfectly into that window. You have a bit of space and you have half a year of information, and that's a good moment to look up from the day-to-day and take stock. Now, before we look at a single number, I need to say something about how we do this because it matters more than anything else in this episode. This is a checkpoint, not a performance review, and we're not here to judge you. We are here to gather information. I know how loaded numbers can be for therapists. Most of us didn't get into this work because we love spreadsheets. A lot of us have a complicated relationship with money. We're helpers. Looking at revenue can bring up all kinds of feelings about worth and enoughness and whether we're doing okay. So when I say, look at your numbers, I know that for some of you, everything in your body wants to skip this episode, and I get it. And I'm asking you to stay with me anyway. Here's the frame I want you to hold. Your numbers are not a grade. They are not a measure of your worth as a clinician or as a person. They're just information, like a compass reading. A compass doesn't judge you for being off course. It just tells you where you are so you can decide where to point next. And that's all we're doing today. We're taking a compass reading at the halfway mark. No judgment, just an honest look so you can steer with intention. So let's look back at the first 6 months. And I want you to actually do this, not just listen, but at some point this week, sit down with a cup of coffee or tea and your booking system or your bookkeeping and take a real look. Here is what I'd look at. Start with the simplest thing, revenue. What did you actually bring in from January through June? Not what you hoped, not what you feared, what actually landed. Just get the real number in front of you. For a lot of people, simply looking at it is the hardest and most freeing part because the number in your head is almost always scarier than a number on the page. Then look at your sessions. How many sessions did you actually deliver over those 6 months? What did an average week look like? Were you close to the caseload you wanted, over it, or under it? This tells you something different from revenue. It tells you about your capacity and your energy, not just your income. Then a few quieter numbers that tell you a lot. How many new clients came into your practice and where did they come from? What did your no-show and late cancellation rate look like? And what has your fee been? Is it still the right one for the work you're doing? None of these are pass or fail. They're just threads. And when you look at them together, they start to tell you a story. Now, I can hear a very reasonable question forming, which is, Liane, that's lovely, but where do I even find these numbers? Because a lot of us keep our practice finances in a slightly hopeful state of, I'm sure it's roughly fine. So let me make this concrete and doable, because the whole thing falls apart if it feels like a giant accounting project you'll never start. You do not need fancy software or a bookkeeper to do a mid-year checkpoint. You need three things. First, wherever your money actually lands, your business bank account or your payment processor, where you can see what came in over the 6 months. Second, your calendar or booking system, where you can count roughly how many sessions you delivered. And third, 10 quiet minutes and a willingness to look. That's it. If you have bookkeeping software already, wonderful. It'll take you 5 minutes. And if you don't, you can literally scroll your account and your calendar and jot a few numbers on a piece of paper. The goal today is not a perfect audit. The goal is an honest, good enough picture. Rough and real beats precise and never done. And if the very idea of opening that account makes your stomach tighten, notice that and be kind about it. That tightening is exactly the thing that keeps a lot of good therapists from ever looking, which means they run their whole practice on a feeling instead of a fact. You deserve to know your real numbers. They're yours. Let's go get them, because that's really the point of a checkpoint. The numbers, not the numbers themselves, but the story they're telling you. Numbers are really just the surface, and underneath every one of them is something about how you've been working and how it's been landing in your life. So let's read a few of the stories they might be telling. Say your revenue is lower than you'd like, but when you look closer, your caseload was actually full and you felt good all spring. That's not a failure story. That might be a fee story. You may simply be undercharging for the work you're doing, and the fix isn't to cram in more clients, it's to honestly look at your fee. And that's a very different conclusion than I need to hustle harder, and you'd never see it without looking. Or say the revenue looks okay, but you're exhausted. You look at the sessions and you were consistently over the caseload you actually wanted. That's a capacity story. The number technically worked, but the way you got there isn't sustainable. And if you don't catch that at the halfway point, you carry that exhaustion into a busy fall, and that is how good therapists burn out. Or maybe you notice that almost all your new clients came from one single source, one referring doctor, one directory. That's a resilience story. Things are fine right now, but you're leaning on one leg of the stool, and the second half of the year might be the time to widen that base. Do you see what's happening here? The number is just the doorway. The story is what you actually get to act on. So as you look at your 6 months, keep asking the gentle question, what is this telling me? Not, is this good or bad, but what is this telling me? Here's one more because it's common and it's sneaky. Say your revenue is bumpy, a strong month, then a thin one, then strong again, and it's making you anxious even though the 6 month total is actually fine. When you look closer, you realize the thin months line up with the weeks you had a lot of late cancellations and no-shows. That's not really an income story at all. It's a policy story. And it might mean it's time to look at how you handle cancellations, a clearer policy, a card on file, a gentle reminder system so that your income stops swinging on things outside your control. Again, notice you'd never land on cancellation policy if you were only staring at the revenue number and feeling bad. You get there by reading the story. And one gentle caution as you do this, watch out for the temptation to explain a hard number away before you've really looked at it. Oh, that month was just weird, or that's only because of this one thing. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's the mind protecting us from information we'd rather not have. So let the numbers speak first, all the way, before you start reaching for the reasons. The story is more useful when you let it finish. Once you've read the story of the first half of your year, you get to do the good part. You get to look forward, and you're doing it from a much stronger position now because you're not guessing, you're planning from evidence. And here's where the timing works in your favor. The second half of the year has a very predictable shape for our field. The quiet of summer, and then come late August into September, the back to school surge when inquiries pick up and practices fill. So whatever story your first 6 months told you, you now have a window to respond to it before that wave hits. If the first half told you a fee story, this summer is when you decide your new fee and get ready to hold it so you can carry it into the fall with the new clients coming in. If it told you a capacity story, now is when you decide the caseload you actually want for the fall and get comfortable with a wait list so you can protect that number when the inquiries start. If it told you a resilience story, this is the season to reach out and build a couple of new referral relationships while everyone is a little less busy. The mid-year checkpoint and the fall wave fit together. The checkpoint tells you what to adjust. The summer gives you room to adjust it, and the fall is where it pays off. Now, here's where I want to protect you from yourself a little because I know how this can go. You look at 6 months of data, you see 3 or 4 stories, and the temptation is to walk away with a giant list of everything you're going to fix and change and overhaul. And a giant list is just another word for overwhelm. It's the fastest way to do nothing. So I'm going to ask you to do the harder, better thing. Choose 1 or 2 intentions for the second half, just 1 or 2. Look at the stories your numbers told you and pick the 1 or 2 that matter most. The ones that if you actually address them would change the most about how the rest of your year feels. Maybe it's I'm changing my fee in September. Maybe it's I'm capping my caseload at a number that lets me breathe. And maybe it's I'm building 2 new referral relationships before the fall. 1 or 2. Clear, specific, and grounded in what you actually learned. And notice I'm saying intentions, not resolutions. A resolution is a promise you make to a future self and usually break. And an intention is a direction you point yourself in and adjust as you go. We're not making rigid vows here. We're just taking that compass, reading, and choosing where to point next, gently, with self-respect. That's how change actually holds. Now, let me give you a small structure for holding your intention so it doesn't just evaporate the moment you close your laptop. For each one you choose, name 3 things: what you noticed, what you're going to do about it, and when. So it might sound like, I noticed I was consistently over the caseload I wanted, and I ended the spring exhausted. So I'm going to cap my fall caseload at 22 sessions a week. And I'll set that up in August before the inquiries start. What, and when? That is the entire plan. It fits on an index card, and an intention that fits on an index card is one you might actually follow. Then, and this is the part most of us skip, put a date in your calendar to check in on it. Maybe the end of September once the fall has actually started. Not to grade yourself, just to take another quick compass reading and see if you're pointed where you meant to be. A checkpoint isn't a once-a-year event. It's the habit of looking gently and regularly so you're never running your practice blind for very long. Now, I want to close the body of this episode by coming back to the feelings part because I don't want to pretend the numbers are purely neutral. For a lot of us in the helping professions, money is tangled up with a lot of other things. Our sense of worth, guilt about charging people who are struggling, an old story that caring and earning are somehow at odds. So if looking at your numbers today stirred something up, that's okay, and you're not doing it alone. But I want to offer you this. Looking at your numbers clearly is not the opposite of being a caring practitioner. It's part of it. A practice that's financially healthy is a practice that gets to keep its doors open, keep serving people, and keep you well enough to do the work for the long haul. Looking honestly at your revenue isn't greedy, it's stewardship. It's how you make sure this work, which matters so much, can actually last. 10 years in, and I can tell you the practitioners who are still here, still doing beautiful work, are the ones who made peace with looking at their numbers. Calm works, trust converts, and clarity is what makes it sustainable. So take your compass reading this week. Be kind to yourself while you do it, and then point yourself gently towards a second half of the year that supports the life you actually want. Now, before you go, there are 2 things I'd love for you to do. First, if you're not already in it, come join our free Facebook group for therapists. It's a warm, grounded community of Canadian practitioners building their practices a sustainable way. And honestly, it is the perfect place to share what your mid-year checkpoint turned up. Ask the real questions and get support from people who understand exactly what this work is like. I'd love to see you in there, and the link is in the show notes. Secondly, and this is the big one, because Build Your Private Practice is turning 10 this year, we are throwing a 10th birthday celebration and you're invited. It's happening on Friday, September 25th in Toronto. It's an in-person event, and we also have a virtual option so you can join us from wherever you are. After a decade of building this alongside you, I would so love to celebrate it with you, whether that's in the room in Toronto or on the screen from home. We would love to see you there, and all the details are in the show notes. Thank you for taking this honest look with me today. Be gentle with yourself. Point your compass with intention, and I'll see you next Monday. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow Canadian therapist who needs this. And remember, the work you do matters. Keep showing up, keep holding space, and keep building a practice that works for you. If you're looking for practical tools or support to grow your practice with more clarity and confidence, head to buildyourprivatepractice.ca. There's lots waiting for you there. I'll see you next time.